6143 Fulmar, Fulmar. And his phone number is 266-1170, or his cell phone number 757-5814. And this will be starting around 9 o'clock, maybe 9 to 12, something like that. If those of you that are familiar with Highway 94, if you take it east until Federal, you turn off on Federal, and then at the first light, you turn up to the right, and quite quickly take an immediate left, and you go up the hill there, and you're very close. So it's near Highway 94 and Federal. David Yates will have to figure out a way to apportion the rootstocks. Some people that ordered a whole gob of them will probably only get a certain portion. But if the bark slips on these rootstocks, you just cut a T in the bark and lift up those two shoulders, and if those shoulders lift up, it's very easy to cut out a bud and slip it right under the bark, wrap it. Then 3 weeks later, if the bud is still green, you want to force it out. And you do that by bending the top down. Some people sort of crack it down. But anyhow, you'll see all of that on Saturday at the workshop.
You going to be there?
Yeah.
Good.
One other thing, the July 10th picnic. I don't know if everybody read the newsletter carefully, but on July 10th, the North County chapter and this chapter are planning to have a picnic, a potluck, deciduous fruit roundup. There's a lot of deciduous fruit varieties there at this Moondance Ranch near Lake Wolford. But if people would bring also from their own gardens whatever they have and share it, sample it, and so forth, it should be a very fun event. And then we'll do a potluck, but also our chapter will plan on picking up some hot dogs and hamburger patties and maybe some bratwurst, I don't know. But anyhow, bring some dish for the potluck thing. On the 26th,
The mic went off, Jim. Your microphone went off. There it goes.
okay, I have to stay close to it. On the 26th, the annual plant sale and potluck in the Paul Hickey building in the Quail Gardens takes place. So that's another very nice event that it gives us a chance to get the two chapters together and see old friends and so forth. So they should both be a lot of fun. The Moondance Ranch, many of us have been there before to pick persimmons, like in November. But they have a very nice picnic ground, barbecue pit, horseshoe pits, some unusual animals, and it's a very, very nice setting. It was a burned out avocado grove many years ago when a fire went through that area. And since then, some of the avocados grew back, and they planted a lot of persimmon trees. And they have a big collection of all the fruit tree varieties from Dave Wilson Nursery. So we should have a chance to taste all kinds of interesting fruit, the super duper new varieties and interspecific crosses and so forth. Plus probably purchase some, I don't know. Okay, let's see. The fair staffing, June, are you in the area?
She's here.
She just came in.
Okay.
She might be in the kitchen.
Well, when she comes out of how many of you have done a shift at the fair?
Joy, raise your hand.
Okay, that means there are quite a few of you yet that still need to have an inspiring experience. And if you feel sort of chicken about it, just pair up with some oldie, and it ain't no big deal. June, how are the slots?
We still have a few empty spaces. And I want to say thank you to all of you who have already volunteered. We've done a super job. You can't believe how many people have come by and talked to us. And we've got,
Give her the mic, Jim.
I think we have 3 pages of people who want our newsletter emailed to them already. So anyway, we've been doing a super job over there. Everybody who helped, all the guys who brought up plants. Our booth looks terrific, and we've been having a lot of fun. We do have a couple empty spaces, so those of you who would like to volunteer again or haven't volunteered at all, you might come and see me. It looks like mostly in the last week or so.
Okay, the last week of the fair.
Yeah, of the fair. And, but the fair's been going fine, hasn't it? Jim's been there a couple times too, so has David, Vaughn, and...
Yeah, it looked a little naked until David and I got there on the 10th with a lot of plant material. And I think it looks pretty good now. When you go, raid your garden and bring in anything that's interesting and add to the tasting.
Fruit to sample.
Yeah. People get fascinated by different things. It might be something as simple as Suriname cherries, whatever people enjoy it. Okay. Committee reports. Is there anybody that wants to do a committee report?
I'll do one.
Okay. David Long with the Paul Thompson Endowment Committee.
I don't know if I need this or not. Can you hear me pretty well?
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to be here, and it's always fun to learn about fruit. As far as our endowment committee goes, we've had some really interesting things happen over the last few months. And I wasn't here last month, so I couldn't say too much about it. The first is our endeavor, or our partnership with Cuyamaca College went extremely well. We partnered with their propagation class. They learned an incredible amount as far as different types of things that they've never been able to propagate before, with cuttings, with seeds. Jim and David Yetz went over there for 2 classes and actually taught grafting. And what they had done in the past is they would have the teacher up there graft a plant and show them how it was done. They all grafted between 3 to 5 plants themselves, so they got hands-on practice. For us, it was really great because we were able to get a lot of plant material that we used at our sale. The tomatoes were a really good example of that. I mean, we got 500 or 600 tomato plants, and they just flew off the shelf because they were this big and they were very reasonable. So it was great, and we're looking forward to doing that again with them. We also, in the end, they needed to have space done, so they still had another 200 tomato plants, 100 peppers, and other stuff. So we did a bulk purchase from them for not hardly anything. I think we paid 25 cents a plant, and we gave those away with the Master Gardeners to schools and community gardens. And I know they've been planted around in a lot of different places. They went to a great benefit. We are talking with the Master Gardeners to see if we can come to a partnership again, something that we can work together with on working with schools, because our very first proposition was teaching kids how to grow things and try to inspire them. And the idea was, our first one was to have them grow seeds and do all this other stuff. When I talked to the Master Gardeners last week, they're far beyond that. They said they get all that stuff for free and they do that. What they're actually looking at in a lot of their schools is getting cuttings from us, possibly doing some grafting. It's really exciting that they have these things going on with the schools and with certain ones that they really want to do more. And they said, can we bring the kids to your meetings? And I said, please, bring them in. So a lot of great things are happening. There is more, but I don't want to waste your time carrying on about these things. I do want to ask you to please come to our meetings. We only have a few people who are on the committee and we're active, and we need to have more people because we need to have ideas. We need to have people that can help with this. This is a great endeavor, and I want to see it continue on. So we meet once every 2 months. So our next meeting is going to be in August. It's the third Wednesday at 6:30, just over here in the library, room 104. You can get hold of me through Jim or through Karen, and I'd be glad to give you information. But what I really would love to have is more participation from our membership, because it doesn't take much at all, but a little bit of help here and there really makes a big difference, and we're having a major impact with different communities, with different organizations like the Master Gardeners and the California Center for Sustainable Energy, and I don't want to lose that momentum. So I just ask for, if you could come and join us and help once every other month, that would be great. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Okay. David, do you want to say anything about the irrigation project? Or later?
First of all, I wanted to say that, I don't know if Jim mentioned it, but the budwood from the CCPP came in just today, and we're organizing right now. So at the break, at the end of the lecture, then we could go ahead and distribute that to you. So if you did order some of that, then see me after the meeting here, and we'll get it to you. And
And then you have to decide if that's the right one.
yeah, the problem was also with the rootstock is that we had quite a bit more interest in it than was available. So we're going to have to distribute it more fairly. And on the budwood, if we didn't meet the 12 bud minimum on things, then they didn't ship it to us. So we tried to match things up. So we're going to get some of what you wanted, but not all of it, unfortunately. And maybe next year when we order it again, we'll work out the details and make it go a little bit smoother. And then, was there a question about the irrigation at?
Yeah, some of us have been going down to Southwestern to keep the plants down there watered, and after a while that gets to be a little bit taxing. But David was down there yesterday, I guess, and is designing a drip system with a lot of spaghettis.
Right. Yeah, I'm working with Ben, who also works down there at, and teaches some classes at Southwestern College. And we're going to try to put a drip emitter into each pot so that things stay alive down there. We're heading into the real hot weather now. And as you know, if you miss even one day in a hot summer without watering your 5-gallon or 1-gallon pots, things can really go downhill fast. So it's going to be an automated system with a clock, and things will just get watered automatically. And these are the plants that a lot of them we sold at the last plant fair here at the park for the club. So they make a lot of money for us, and so we do want to keep them alive. And so it's a good thing. If anybody would like to donate time helping with that, just let me know, and I'll let you know the work date that we're going to work on that. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, North County had a speaker that they seemed to be very pleased with. I think it was like last March, on healthy soils and soil nutrition, soil testing, etc. So I figured, why don't I talk with Mary Matava and see if she would speak to our group. So here she is, and she can say something about her business, agri-service.
Bring the mic around the other side, Jim.
I know, I never thought I'd need a microphone. My kids used to always say my voice was loud enough to hear in the next city. But, is this on? Yep. Okay.
It's very directional.
Is it?
And also there's a switch on it that has to be up.
You just have to almost swallow it, Mary.
Yeah.
There's so many things to remember.
Yeah, there you go, you got it.
So,
First off, your name.
my name, Mary Matava.
Thank you.
Any other questions? See, nobody ever asks a question before I get started.
Well, we'd like to know who the presenter is.
So I got involved with soils when I was about 2, but I'll skip all of that. And ended up studying soils back in the 70s. I've always been fascinated with how to make a soil more productive. I have no idea why, but I think somebody planted a seed in my head that people were always going to have to eat, and that the population of the world would grow. And unless we had soils that could be productive, we would not be able to sustain the world's population. And I had a Western thought teacher when I was about 16, and he said, you know, think about going into agriculture for precisely that reason, because my background is in the sciences. And then he said, and I thought this was pretty cool for somebody that had never taken a science class, my teacher, he said, the real issue, though, isn't going to be food in the next century. It's going to be water, and how true that became. So when I moved to California from Oregon, after going to school at Oregon State and studying soils and taking more soils classes than you can ever imagine, I was really surprised at how people were trying to grow subtropical trees in this arid environment. And one of the basic tenets of agronomy is that if you take something out of its native environment, you want to duplicate as well as possible the environment that it would have grown in or developed in. And that makes a lot of sense, right? So one day when I had a soil testing lab for about 20 years. So one day I was out in an avocado orchard, and somebody had called me in and said, that they had trouble with the tree and they'd replanted it 3 times. And so, you know, it's kind of like being a doctor, a diagnostician. So you have to go through and try and figure out what happened. And so he starts out, well, first of all, I had to jackhammer the hole. So, you know, as soon as somebody needs a jackhammer to dig a hole, to put their avocado tree in, which is a subtropical, that there's something a little bit wrong with that picture. And indeed, in most of the soils that, not so much down here in San Diego, but up in the North County where we're growing a lot of citrus and avocados, we refer to it commonly as DG, right? And a lot of
Hard
times it's
pan
just
clay.
G. It's just G, yeah. We're at that parent material. It has nothing, it hasn't even decomposed yet. So today, what I'd like to talk about a little bit is the principles of soil, the interactions between the chemical and physical and biological states of the soil. And also talk a little bit about how you can identify, do some identification of some soil problems that you may have inside your own yard. And how to take a soil test. People always ask that. So how to take a soil test if you do decide that you want to take a soil test and send it off to a laboratory. And I know it sounds really expensive, like $85 to have a soil test run. But here's the deal. Most landscapes cost so much money, and the trees that you're buying cost so much money. It's not such a bad idea to do this, before you plant rather than after it dies. So especially if you have a new planting that you're doing in an area that hasn't grown plants before. So I'll show you how to do that. And then what I really would hope that you do is tomorrow, when you have a chance to go outside and look at your trees, to go out and look at your soil, maybe try a few of these different things, and look at your soil in a little bit different way. So with that, I'll get started. Oh, no. Maybe we could get. Do any of these lights up in front turn off?
Yeah, we're turning them on.
Okay. Can you see that a little bit better?
There we go.
So like Jim said, my company is AgriService. I started out as a soil testing laboratory back in 1978, so I'm one of the old timers now in the business. And then about 15 years ago, it's not that funny, about 15 years ago, I started the El Corazon compost facility up in Oceanside. And we take municipal green waste in there, turn it into compost and mulch, and then have a giveaway program for residents, which is very popular. We do vermicomposting, and we're also now making compost teas. And if you live in Oceanside, you get those products for free. So that's kind of a cool thing if you live in Oceanside. And so it's been a lot of fun, because one of the things that I'm really, really interested in is how we treat our soil. If we don't take care of it, then it won't serve us. And the other thing is that one of the things that we do a lot of that really affects us from an environmental standpoint, because we do live in areas that are close to the ocean, and we do have water that feeds into it, is a lot of areas in San Diego County, as well as Oceanside itself now, we're facing what they call total maximum daily loads from the Regional Water Quality Control Board. And one of the biggest offenders is nitrate nitrogen. Now, the fertilizer industry says that people don't over-apply nitrogen, it goes on and on, the argument. But I would argue that if it's showing up in the streams during storm events, then one, we know the plant didn't use it, obviously, because it's in the stream. And two, we've wasted a lot of money, and it really does do damage to the environment. So one of the reasons I got so involved with organics was simply because this is a way to cut down on the amount of petrochemical fertilizer that we use and grow healthier plants. So, I guess you could sum up what my mission is. I've always been interested in this, and I feel really honored to have been able to build a company that employs people that does exactly what I've always wanted to do. And I guess you could kind of sum it up that we want to do more good than harm. So healthy soils support healthy plants. And even if, I want to stress here, that just because you have a healthy soil, and I'll define that a little bit later, just because you have a healthy soil doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a healthy plant. There's a lot of other things that can happen to plants besides the soil. But what I can say, that if you have a soil that has limiting factors, which we'll talk about, that can affect plant growth, that you may not, that you probably won't have healthy plants. It's just one of those basics that we have to have. And even though, like, and the avocados are a really great example, we get a fraction of the yield in our avocado industry than avocado trees are capable of producing. And a lot of it has to do with the quality of water that we use, which we don't have a lot of control over, but it also has to do with trying to grow a plant that's adapted to a very organic layer in the soil with a very shallow root system on soils that either have too much clay or not enough organic matter in them. So definition of soil, you can read that. Basically, I like the definition of soil that it'll support plant growth. And a lot of situations that we run into are such that the soils themselves, they're just the mineral matter after somebody's shaved away the topsoil, which we, of course, don't have very much of in California, in Southern California. When I first moved here, knowing that topsoil erosion is like the #1 problem in agriculture worldwide, I used to kind of think to myself, well, at least we don't have to worry about that in San Diego County, because we really don't have a lot of topsoil. So support plant growth, that's what we're going for. So what are some of the characteristics of healthy soils? One is that we want it to have a granular structure. When you pick up your soil and look at it, you want it to be kind of friable, and you can see where it has aggregates in it, right? It's not sticky and platey and kind of nasty, and you want to make sure that it has enough organic matter that's suitable for the plant palette. Obviously, if you're growing desert adapted material, you really don't need to have as much organic matter as if you're trying to grow subtropicals, right? So you really want to try and match that up. And you want to make sure that you have nutrient and water reservoirs that are sufficient to meet plant needs. And some plants use different amounts of nitrogen, and of course they're using it at different times of the year. So it doesn't do a whole lot of good to have a lot of nitrogen in your soil in the form of mineral nitrogen like nitrates in the wintertime when the plants are in quiescence and aren't going to be taking it up. And yet we still see a lot of people that put on mineral fertilizer in the wintertime. And there's just no point to it. The only place that that's going to end up is in the stream or the groundwater. And then we want it again to have friable and good tilth.
What does that mean?
Well, we're going to get to that in just a minute about the tilth part. So first of all, let me mention though what the 5 factors of soil formation are, because you need to think about this when you're amending your soil. What you're trying to do when you amend a soil is to do what nature would do under optimum conditions, and you're trying to do that in a very short period of time, right? It may take 1,000 years for a really great soil to develop in our circumstances here, because we don't have a lot of rainfall. But what you're trying to do is, especially if you've moved into a new area and they've, again, shaved off the top layer, is that you're trying to duplicate what nature would do, but you're probably trying to do it in a month or so instead of years. So you have to think about the parent material, and in our area we have a lot of granitic type parent material, so which is good. I mean, that's not a bad thing. You have to think about topography. It's a lot harder to build a soil that's on a slope. Does that make sense? Because when leaves fall on it, they're not going to stay on the slope. They're going to be down at the bottom. So a lot of times you'll find in the barrancas that you'll have a much richer soil that's higher in organic matter than you do up on top of a hill. And I'm sure you've all experienced that. One thing that people don't think about, though, is north-facing versus south-facing slopes. And those differ tremendously. Which do you think has more organic matter, north slope or south-facing slope? North. Well, you have a 50% chance of being right. Actually, in our conditions, it depends on what your what your climatic zone is. But in an area like ours where we don't get a lot of rainfall, it's actually the north-facing slope that generally will have more organic matter in it. So when you're driving around, I mean, next time, and you're passing through some canyons, take a look and see what kind of vegetation is growing, and think about whether it's a north or a south-facing slope. I think you'll really see a difference. Obviously, I have too much free time on my hands. The vegetation, organic matter, and all that's tied to the climatic zone too.
Desiccation, did you say?
Vegetation.
Oh, vegetation.
Vegetation. And I can, if you like, I can give you a copy of this PowerPoint, and then you can post it so anybody can pick it up, so in case you want notes. So vegetation, organic matter, that's kind of tied to the rainfall that we get. And we don't get that much rainfall here. It's about 9 inches a year, right? Somewhere around that. But there's areas, have any of you ever been up in the Duluth area? Up north of Fallbrook, in between Fallbrook and Temecula.
Oh, rainbow area.
No, Duluth. So
Other side.
it's the other side, yeah. So it's the back road, which is kind of a fun road. So the back road up there, there's kind of this convergence zone. I don't know what the real climatic term for it is, but they get about 30 inches of rain right in that area. And the vegetation there, you drive through it and you think, oh my gosh, I'm in Colombia or something. It's amazing. It's amazing. So
Is that
if
more
you-
near Bonsall, or is it
No,
more
no,
on the
no,
other side?
further. So you go out to Fallbrook and
Okay.
then you take Duluth Road. And
East, more towards
it's
Valley
more
Center?
No, it's north. It'll
Oh,
take you
okay.
into Temecula.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's that back road that goes into Temecula, and there's a lot of avocados that can cross over the riverside line. So the vegetation out there, the soil development is completely different than what it is just even a few miles away. It's really amazing. And then the last one is time. It takes time to develop a soil, so we have to be a little bit patient with it, or actually we have to be a lot patient with it because you don't have any choice. So, but you have to be patient because it does take time. So when we talk a little bit more about how you change your soil, you can see, I'm sure you'll be able to see why that is. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the soil textural triangle, because there really isn't anything that you can do to change the texture of your soil. You're going to have sand, silt, and clay in your soil in some percentage. And if you look at this chart, what you can see is that if you go on where it says percent clay, if you follow that up from 0 to 100% clay, you can see it doesn't take very long. You only need 40% clay to be in a really bona fide type clay soil. And you only need 30% or 10% clay, 20% clay, sorry, to have a sandy clay loam. It doesn't take very much clay to be there. And clay is one of the biggest problems that we have in good drainage in our soils. So there isn't anything that you can do about this, but it's nice to know what kind of soil you have, because that's also going to determine how you